What happens when one of Hollywood's most beloved stars walks into what's supposed to be a simple, lighthearted interview, only to end up in the most explosive on-air clash of his career? What followed was a moment so intense that it ended with studio security being called and a guest forcibly escorted out. This is the story of Johnny Depp's disastrous appearance on The View, and how Joy Behar turned a friendly sit-down into a career-defining showdown that split audiences and sent social media into meltdown. Before we dive into the chaos, make sure to hit that subscribe button and tell us in the comments whose side you were on when it all went down. Johnny Depp arrived on The View set that morning expecting the usual routine: promote a new film, share a few laughs, charm the hosts, and move on. The audience greeted him with roaring applause as he flashed his trademark smile, settling into the guest chair with effortless charisma. "Welcome back to The View, Johnny," Whoopi Goldberg said warmly. "Thanks for having me, Whoopi." "Always a pleasure," Depp replied with an easy grin, adjusting his rings as cameras rolled. But Joy Behar had a different agenda. Even before the first segment began, her posture was tense, her papers spread neatly in front of her. When she finally spoke, her tone cut through the studio like a knife. "So, Johnny," she began, interrupting the flow before anyone else could speak, "let's talk about your recent legal troubles and how they've affected your ability to get work in Hollywood." The room fell silent. This wasn't the friendly banter the View audience was expecting. Depp's smile faltered slightly, though his composure held. "Well, Joy," he said evenly, "I'm actually here to talk about my new film, a project I'm really proud of. I think audiences are going to love it." But Joy wasn't letting go. "Sure, but don't you think the public deserves an explanation? After everything that's come out, people are hesitant to support your work." The other hosts exchanged uneasy looks. Sunny Hostin shifted in her seat. Sarah Haynes stared down at her notes, and Whoopi tried to intervene. "Joy, maybe we should—" "No," Joy cut her off sharply. "This is the conversation. The View doesn't shy away from tough questions." She leaned forward, eyes locked on Depp. "You've made millions from fans, especially women, and now a lot of them feel betrayed. What do you say to them?" Depp's jaw tightened. Years of media training kept his voice calm, but the tension in his eyes betrayed him. "I'd say people should focus on the art, not the artist's personal life," he replied carefully. "I've always tried to create characters that entertain people. That's what I'm here to talk about." "But you can't separate the two, can you?" Joy fired back. "When people pay to see your films, they're supporting you. And given your history, don't you think that's a problem?" A low murmur swept through the audience. The energy shifted. This wasn't entertainment anymore. It was confrontation. "My track record?" Depp repeated, his tone now edged with steel. "Joy, I came here to discuss my work, not to be put on trial." "Maybe that's the problem," Joy said, leaning back with a smirk. "Maybe you think you can just charm your way out of taking responsibility." Sunny jumped in, desperate to steer things back. "Johnny, tell us about your co-stars on this project." Joy waved her off. "We'll get to that. First, I want Johnny to explain why our audience should trust him again." Depp's composure began to slip. "Joy, I'm an actor. I make movies. People can watch them or not. I'm not running for office here." "But you are asking for their money and emotional investment," Joy countered. "And frankly, I think a lot of people are wondering if you deserve it." By now, the tension was palpable. Cameras zoomed in tighter. The hosts looked frozen, but Joy seemed to thrive on the escalating heat. "You know what, Joy?" Depp said finally, his voice low but firm. "You made up your mind about me before I even walked in." "This isn't an interview. It's an ambush." "It's accountability," Joy shot back. "Something you seem to struggle with." That was the breaking point. Depp leaned forward, eyes blazing. "Accountability? From someone who makes a living tearing people down on television?" "That's rich, Joy," the audience gasped. What happened next would be talked about for weeks, a live TV implosion that no one saw coming. This was not the charming, soft-spoken Johnny Depp audiences were used to seeing. The easygoing movie star had vanished, replaced by someone visibly angry, cornered, and done playing nice. Joy Behar's eyes lit up, sensing she'd finally drawn blood. "Oh, so now you're going to attack me personally?" she said with mock innocence, turning to the camera. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly what I'm talking about. The moment Johnny Depp gets a tough question, he gets defensive and lashes out." "I'm not lashing out," Depp replied tightly, his hands gripping the arms of his chair. "I'm pointing out the hypocrisy of someone who profits off controversy lecturing me about accountability." "Okay, let's all take a breath," Whoopi began, but Joy cut her off again, waving dismissively. "No, Whoopi. I want to hear what Johnny has to say. Go ahead, Johnny. Tell us how you really feel about your critics." Depp leaned forward, all traces of his trademark composure gone. "You want to know how I feel? I feel like I walked into a courtroom, not a talk show. Like you decided to prosecute me before I even sat down. You're not interested in what I actually have to say." "Maybe that's because what you have to say isn't worth hearing," Joy shot back with a cruel smirk. "Maybe people are tired of your sob stories and your victim complex." The other hosts looked horrified. Sarah Haynes stared at her lap, while Sonny Hostin glanced nervously toward the producers, silently pleading for someone to step in. But the cameras kept rolling, and Joy kept pushing. "Victim complex?" Depp's voice rose. "You sit here every day judging people you've never met, making assumptions about situations you don't understand, and you want to talk to me about victim complexes?" "I know what I've read," Joy countered sharply. "I know what the courts have said. I know what multiple people have testified under oath. Do you?" Depp suddenly stood, his chair sliding back with a loud scrape. "Or do you just know what gets ratings? Because that's all you seem to care about." The studio fell dead silent except for the low hum of the cameras. Joy stayed seated, but her confidence wavered, just slightly. "Sit down, Johnny," she said, trying to sound in control. "You're being ridiculous." "I'm being ridiculous?" Depp laughed bitterly. "I came here to talk about a film that employed hundreds of people, something positive. And you'd rather relitigate my entire personal life on national TV. And I'm the one being ridiculous?" "You're a public figure," Joy insisted. "Your personal life is public business when it affects..." "When it affects what?" Depp cut her off, voice booming. "Your ability to feel morally superior? Your ratings? Because that's what this is really about, isn't it, Joy?" Her face turned red. Whether from anger or embarrassment, no one could tell. "How dare you question my motives?" she snapped. "I'm trying to give our viewers the truth about who you really are." "The truth?" Depp said incredulously. "You wouldn't know the truth if it walked up and introduced itself. You deal in gossip and call it journalism. I deal in facts," Joy shot back. "Something you seem allergic to." "Facts?" Depp stepped closer to the panel table. "Here's a fact, Joy. You spent the last 10 minutes trying to tear me down, not because you care about truth or justice, but because you enjoy it. You get off on it." The tension was unbearable. Even the camera operators seemed to hesitate, unsure whether to keep filming. "I get off on holding people accountable," Joy hissed, "something that clearly makes you uncomfortable." "What makes me uncomfortable," Depp said, his voice trembling with restrained fury, "is watching someone abuse their platform to bully people for entertainment. You're not a journalist." "Joy, you're a professional provocateur." "And you're a washed-up actor who can't handle criticism," Joy fired back instantly. That was the breaking point. Depp's fists clenched, and for a moment the entire studio froze, the air electric with tension, everyone wondering if things were about to turn physical. "You know what?" he said finally, his voice low and cold. "You're right about one thing. Joy, I can't handle this kind of criticism, because I can't sit here and be lectured by someone who wouldn't last 5 minutes. Under the kind of scrutiny you dish out for a living. Then, maybe you shouldn't be in the public eye," Joy replied icily. "And maybe you shouldn't be on television," Depp snapped back. "But here we are. Okay, we really need to..." Whoopi tried again, but Joy was relentless. "No," she said sharply, cutting her off one last time. "I want to know what gives you, Johnny Depp, the right to come on our show and insult me and our audience." "Your audience?" Depp repeated, his eyes sweeping over the stunned faces staring back at him. "I think your audience deserves better than watching you tear people apart for sport." They deserve a real conversation, not whatever this is. Joy stood up, meeting him across the panel table, her voice sharp. This is reality, Johnny. This is what happens when people ask you real questions instead of tossing you softballs about your latest vanity project. Real questions? Depp's composure finally broke. You haven't asked a single real question since I sat down. You've just been attacking me and calling it journalism. The confrontation had reached its peak, both of them now on their feet, face to face, as the other hosts sat frozen in disbelief. You want journalism? Joy's tone dripped with venom. Here's some journalism for you, Johnny. Your career is over. Nobody wants to work with you. Nobody wants to see your movies. And this little tantrum you're throwing right now isn't going to change that. The words hung in the air like poison. Even Joy seemed to realize she'd gone too far. The studio was deathly silent. A few audience members covered their mouths in shock. Depp stared at her for a long moment, breathing hard, then spoke. His voice calm but dangerously controlled. You know what, Joy? You're absolutely right. Maybe my career is over. Maybe no one wants to work with me anymore. But at least I had a career to lose. At least I created something. All you do is sit here every day tearing down people who actually try to build something. I built this show, Joy snapped back. I built my reputation on telling the truth. You built your reputation by being cruel, Depp shot back. By hiding behind a panel and attacking people who can't fight back. That's not truth-telling, Joy. That's cowardice. Joy's face went pale. How dare you call me a coward? I ask the questions nobody else will ask. No, Depp said, stepping closer to the table. You ask the questions that humiliate people. There's a difference between holding someone accountable and publicly destroying them for entertainment. If you feel destroyed, maybe that says something about your conscience, Joy replied, though her voice had lost its confidence. My conscience is fine, Depp said quietly, but yours should be screaming right now. Because what you're doing, right here in front of all these people, says everything about who you really are. The other hosts sat in stunned silence, hands clasped tightly, watching a situation that had spiraled far beyond their control. Who I really am, Joy said, her voice cracking slightly. I'm someone who isn't afraid to ask tough questions. Someone who holds powerful people accountable. You're someone who bullies people on television, Depp replied flatly. You profit from cruelty and call it courage. And the saddest part is, I don't even think you realize what you've become. That struck a nerve. For the first time, Joy's mask slipped. Just a flicker of doubt in her expression before she snapped back into anger. Get off my stage, she hissed through clenched teeth. Gladly, Depp said, turning toward the exit, but Joy wasn't finished. And don't come back. We don't need washed-up actors lecturing us about morality. Depp stopped mid-step. Slowly he turned back, his gaze burning into her. The room seemed to hold its breath. Washed up? He said softly. You want to know what washed up looks like, Joy? It's spending your golden years attacking people half your age because you never had the talent to create anything yourself. It's turning into the bitter, vindictive caricature people tune in to watch, not because they admire you, but because they pity you. Joy's face twisted in fury. Security! She shouted, her composure finally shattering. Get him out of here! 2 security guards emerged from the wings, but Depp raised a hand calmly. Don't worry, he said, his voice steady again. I'm leaving. But before I do, I want everyone here to remember something. He looked out at the silent audience, then straight into the main camera. This is what happens when you give cruel people power. When you reward bullying with applause and ratings. He paused, his expression unwavering. And this is what it looks like when someone finally stands up to it. Joy was shaking with rage. You're pathetic, she spat. A pathetic has-been who can't handle being called out. Depp gave a small, bitter smile. You know what's really pathetic, Joy? Spending your life tearing down other people's dreams and calling it a career. Destroying instead of creating. That's what's pathetic. The guards flanked him, but Depp didn't resist. He simply straightened his jacket and walked calmly toward the exit, leaving behind a stunned studio and a host who, for the first time that morning, had nothing left to say. Just before reaching the edge of the stage, Depp paused and turned back one last time. By the way, he said casually, his tone calm but cutting. "My new film opens next weekend. For anyone still interested in supporting real art instead of whatever this is." With that, Johnny Depp walked off the view stage, leaving behind a stunned studio audience, a panel of speechless hosts, and one visibly shaken Joy Behar, still standing behind the table, trembling with a mix of anger and something that looked uncomfortably like regret. The cameras continued rolling for nearly half a minute, capturing Joy's failed attempts to compose herself while the others sat frozen in silence. Finally, Whoopi Goldberg called for a commercial break, bringing an abrupt end to what would soon be hailed as the most explosive television moment of the year. The entire exchange lasted under 15 minutes, but it revealed more about both of them than years of interviews ever had. Johnny Depp, stripped of his usual composure, standing up to what he saw as calculated humiliation. And Joy Behar, her trademark tough questions, finally pushed past the line between accountability and cruelty. So what do you think? Was Johnny Depp right to push back against Joy's relentless interrogation, or did he go too far with his own words? Let me know in the comments. Whose side are you on?